State of economy before the budget. If the current government has a coherent and consistent economic philosophy, it would be possible to predict the main features of the forthcoming budget, barring any surprise packages. Unfortunately, it does not. It has in the past swung from capitalism to cronyism, liberalization to mercantilism, competition to oligopolies, Revdi bashing to free grain and Kisan Samman to opposing legally binding MSP. It is prudent to describe the state of economy and leave it to each one to judge whether budget 25-26 was an adequate response to the present challenges. As I travel around the country and observe people from different walks of life, there is certainly evidence of prosperity. Each of the last 3 decades has witnessed impressive growth and development when compared to the 1950s and 1980s. Because liberalization opened the doors to millions of people to produce goods and services and find ways to trade in them, even if there was no government of India, the country's economy would grow at 5% a year. What governments do through their policies and actions is to impact the growth rate for better or worse. As far as the present situation is concerned, it is generally admitted that the growth rate of economy is falling. We are huffling and puffing at between 6 and 7% while boasting that India is fastest growing large economy in the world, which is true. Other large economies are growing at a slower rate, at the United States at 2.7%, China at 4.9%. That growth rate of economy is falling. We are huffling and puffling between 6 and 7% while boasting India as the fastest growing large economy in the world, which is true. Other large economies are growing at a slower rate. United States 2.7%, China 4.9%. However, we forget that in 2024, United States added current prices $787 billion to its GDP and China added $895 billion to its GDP. India's fastest growth rate added roughly $256 billion to the GDP. The gap between China and India has grown. The lesson Indian economy has to grow at a faster rate and consistently in order to catch up with the big two. The growth rate is falling because of key drivers of growth are falling consumption, public investment, and private investment. Of these, the decline in private consumption is visible. There is an illusion of booming economy created by obscene consumption of a thin silver of rich less than 1% of the population. The middle classes 30% and poorer sections 69% have cut their consumption. Discretionary spending is lower. This is visible in small towns and villages. The private final consumption expenditure in constant prices in quarter 2 are 22 lakh crore and 23 lakh crore and 24 lakh crore. Government final consumption expenditure is not much better. The numbers for the same 3 quarters are 3 lakh crore, 3.36 lakh crore, 3.38 lakh crore, and 4 lakh crore. Consumption and investment. The main reasons for sluggish consumption are inflation, especially in food prices, and low and nearly stagnant wages. The main reasons for sluggish consumption are inflation, especially in food prices, and low and nearly stagnant wages. In 6 years between 2017 and 2023, the real wages of agricultural work has risen from 138 per day to 158 per day. Wages for females are rupees 40 lower. For construction workers, the wage per day has risen from 176 to 205. For females, it is 45 rupees lower. The wages per day are a reminder that there are millions of people struggling to make ends meet. Public investment is struck between 6.7 to 7.0% of GDP during the last 10 years. Capital expenditure by central government and public sector enterprises has declined from 4.7% of GDP to 3.8%. Private investment has ranged between 21 and 24% of GDP. If you plot the numbers on a graph, they will appear as a nearly straight line. Inflation, unemployment, and taxes. Inflation is a milestone. Food inflation has averaged 6.18% between 2012 and 24. Healthcare costs have increased at an annual rate of 14%. The rate of inflation in education has been around 11%. According to CMIE, the All India unemployment rate in December 24 was 8.1%, breaking the numbers down by age or education or gender will reveal a more depressing picture. What is loud in the pre-budget debate is relief to the income taxpayers. The number of persons who filed income tax returns in FY 23-24 was 8 lakh, or 6.68% of the population of the filers. 4 lakh 90,000, 4 crore 8 crore people filed income tax returns. Of the filers, 4.9 crore filed zero tax returns. While relief to the income tax payers is important, relief to the daily wage earners is imperative. Other key elements of the current situation are the bewildered tax structure, especially the convoluted GST that affects all the people, including the poor. The government has acquired the tag of being corporates and pro cronies. Corporate profits amounted to 10 lakh crore in 22-23 and rose to 14 lakh crore in 23-24. During the 2 years, scheduled commercial banks wrote off loans to corporates amounting 2 lakh crore and 1 lakh 70,000 crore respectively. The pair of elephants in the room are fiscal deficit and revenue deficit. The people are watching how the government will address these issues. The finance minister and her advisors may have solutions to the problem, but it is the worst kept secret in Delhi that the finance minister may propose, but it is PM who will dispose. Real patriotism versus false nationalism. On an Air India flight from Delhi to Mumbai last week, I heard an announcement that puzzled me because I was so out of place. I cannot remember the exact words, but the gist was that the Indian Constitution was born on January 26, 1950, and it was after this that Indians had been guaranteed democracy and fundamental rights. Why did we need to be told this on a flight? What kind of absurdity was this? When I asked myself these questions, I realized that I had come upon another example of neo-nationalism that has sadly come to define India now. Here, let me confess that I have a distaste for those who feel the need to wear their nationalism or patriotism as badges of honor. Too many people do these days, and I have not met one who was not a big fat bore. For a while now, I have been meaning to discuss in this space the difference between real patriotism and pseudo nationalism. Since the column appears today on India's 75th Republic Day, I believe the time is right for such conversation. In my view, examining the absurdities and dangers of neo nationalism has become necessary because too much aggressive, angry nationalism is being passed off today as patriotism. It is not. There are many differences, of which, in my view, the biggest difference is that patriotism cannot be weaponized, and nationalism most certainly can and has been. In recent years, it has not just been weaponized but become immersed with Hindutva and been used to target Muslims to the point that their patriotism has been questioned in a noxious, ugly way. No real patriot would question the patriotism of another simply because his faith is different to his own, but today neo nationalists do not hesitate to do this, nor do they hesitate to declare openly that, in their view, Muslims cannot be true patriots because their religion comes from elsewhere and their sacred places are in another country. As someone who is old enough to remember an older, gentler India and those older Republic Day parades in that first decade after independence, I would like to say that something vital and wonderful has been destroyed by weaponized nationalism. That first decade was a time when everyone who lived in Delhi could come and watch the parade. I remember that in my childhood we used to walk to it armed with picnic baskets filled with hot drinks and hot parathas, and because it was nearly always rainy and cold, we would be clad in our warmest clothes. I do not remember if there were VIP enclosures then, but I do remember that if we had arrived early enough, we would get seats not so far from the Prime Minister. What is more important, that it was a time when everyone was a patriot and real nationalism, not the pseudo kind, was seen as something that has helped India win freedom from colonial masters. Nobody made any distinction between who was a patriot and who was not, because it would have been considered extremely rude. Since then, much has changed, and it has changed for the worse. India has, in far too many ways, become a harder country than it used to be because of the rise of neo nationalism. When did this start to happen? There are many political pundits of my acquaintance who believe that this happened after Narendra Modi became Prime Minister. I remember that it was a bit earlier, and it had to do with religion. It is hard to say whether it was political Islam or reckless politicians that encouraged religious Hindus to start setting off on yatras for one reason or another. Nearly always, these religious excursions left Hindu-Muslim riots in the wake, and it was not just Hindu politicians who were responsible, but Muslim politicians as well. Today, our problem is neo-nationalists who mix aggressive Hindutva with aggressive nationalism, causing a sickness that seeped like poison into the veins of India. These neo-nationalists are people who think nothing of killing men, they suspect of killing cows, and they think nothing of openly denigrating everything that they associate with Islam. It is not just semi-literate thugs who have become victims of neo-nationalism. There are senior ministers in the Modi government who are rabid neo-nationalists, who do not hesitate to make clear that they think all Muslims are bad people. What I personally find deeply repugnant is that educated, supposedly civilized Indians have also become victims of neo-nationalism. In fine hotels and elegant drawing rooms in Delhi and Mumbai, I seem constantly to run into people who do not hesitate to admit that they believe Muslim and Islam are the root cause of all problems in the world. In Delhi, the same people who are in older time took pleasure in listening to Urdu poetry now speak of how it is important to rid Hindi of all words that came to us from Arabic or Persian. The more idiotic among these believe that Urdu is a foreign language that came to us with Islamic invaders. All of this has quite simply gone too far. It is time for our political leaders to be held to account for the damage they have done and to remind them that spreading poison may win few elections, but it is destroying India. An important morning before the first Republic Day parade, who is in charge? Inside track, Kumi Kapoor. An important morning before the first Republic Day parade. The Republic Day parade on Kartavya Path this year promises to be yet another dazzling affair. This year marks 75 years since our constitution, which was adopted on November 26, 1949, came into effect on January 26, 1950. India's first Republic Day parade was held in the afternoon on January 26, 1950 at New Delhi's Irwin Stadium, renamed Major Dhyanchand Stadium in 2002. Quiet but important changes have been brewing all morning. One of the most significant being the transfer of the power from India's last Governor General to independent India's first president. At 9:45 a.m., President-elect Rajendra Prasad left his residence 1 Queen Victoria Road, now Dr. Rajendra Prasad Road. On his arrival at the Government House, now Rashtrapati Bhavan, he was received by aide-de-camp to Governor General C. Rajagopalachari. At 10 a.m., Rajagopalachari's family, including his wife, reached the Darbar Hall. 2 minutes later, Prasad and Rajagopalachari proceed towards the hall. On the hall steps stood interim Prime Minister Jawaharlal Nehru, who ushered them inside, while Prasad and Rajagopalachari walked side by side towards the dais. Nehru stayed a step behind. On the dais, Rajagopalachari sat on the right and Prasad on the left. At 10:15 a.m., the ceremony started with the national anthem. 3 minutes later, at 10:18 a.m., Rajagopalachari read the proclamation announcing the birth of the Republic and the letter from the Constituent Assembly announcing the name of the President of the Republic of India. The proclamation stated, whereas the people of India, having solemnly resolved to constitute India into a sovereign democratic republic, adopted, enacted, and gave to themselves on the 26th day of November 1949 in their Constituent Assembly of Constitution, the Constitution of India. Therefore, it is hereby proclaimed that on and from this 26th day of January 1950, India, that is Bharat, so formed into a union, shall be a sovereign democratic republic. The announcement was followed by Raja Gopalachari and Prasad literally exchanging their seats. The president-elect now sat on the right side, administered the oath of office by India's first Chief Justice, Harilal Jeki Sundas Kanja, Prasad was given a national salute, followed by band playing the national anthem once again and a 31-gun salute. The Governor General's flag was then replaced by President's flag. Moments later, Prasad administered the oath of office to Nehru and his cabinet, which was followed by a farewell for Raja Gopalachari. His farewell included a resolution passed by the new cabinet to record deep and grateful appreciation for his labors and service to the country. Like the President and Union Cabinet, the personnel of all forces were also administered an oath of allegiance to the Constitution the same morning. Though the ceremony at the Government House ended at 10:35 a.m., the President left for Irwin Stadium only at 2:30 p.m. along the route taken by the presidential convoy from Parliament Street or outside Connaught Circus, Barakhamba Road to Bhagwan Das Road and Stadium. Personnel from Army, Navy, Air Force, and the police stood to greet the procession. Back at the stadium, special arrangements were made for audiences arriving from nearby villages to see the ceremony. Arrangements including parking spaces for bicycles, tangas, cars, and vehicles. At 3:45 p.m., Prasad was at venue when an eager parade was waiting to celebrate the birth of the new republic. Sukarno, the first president of Indonesia, was the chief guest. Incidentally, Prabowo Subianto, the eighth president of Indonesia, is the chief guest this year. On arrival at the stadium, Defense Minister Baldev Singh received Prasad, introduced him to the three service chiefs. The president unfurled the tricolor and bands played the national anthem, after which Prasad, sitting in the jeep, inspected the parade. Once the president returned to saluting base, the parade, comprising nearly 3,000 personnel from the Army, Navy, and the Air Force and the police, started. The biggest highlight of India's first Republic Day celebration was the parade of units representing all the armed forces, led by Brigadier Moti Sagar of the Gurkha Regiment. The festivities included a flypast comprising four engine Liberators and heavy bomber aircraft of the Royal Indian Air Force over the stadium. Despite a ban on formation flying over towns and cities then, Air Marshal Sir Thomas Walker and Chief of Air Staff and Commander in Chief of the Royal Indian Air Force approved one anyway in view of the significance of the event. Three military awards recognizing acts of bravery in the presence of the enemy were instituted and notified the same day. Paramveer Chakra, highest honor, Mahavir Chakra and Veer Chakra. Another award, Ashok Chakra, was instituted for the armed forces and civilians to recognize acts other than in combat with the enemy in maintaining law and order. For example, At a parade, at the parade that day, Paramveer Chakras were awarded to Major Somnath Sharma, who had died in the Battle of Budgam in 1947. Lance Nayak Karm Singh, India's first living soldier to be awarded the honor for heroic deeds performed despite 16 bullet injuries in Titwal sector of Jammu and Kashmir during the 1948 conflict with Pakistan. Raja Gopalachari and his wife boarded the President's Dakota and took off Madras, now Chennai, by 5 p.m. that day. The President was back at the Government House. Who is in charge? On paper, it would appear that BJP has an edge in the Delhi Assembly poll. What, what with the Congress cutting into the AP's vote share? So this is a political article. Let us skip it. Versions of Lost and Found in the Kumbh. It is only fitting that during the greatest Hindu festival on earth, replete with colorful processions and devotees singing, dancing while wielding ceremonial spears, some unique characters emerge, their complicated backstories revealing how Kumbh Mela can be spiritually elevating. The hitherto unknown 30-year something Abhay Singh, now known as IITN Baba, has become a sensation in the last fortnight after a video of him dancing with reckless abandon went viral on YouTube. Kitted out in a typical orange garb of sadhu with matted hair, beaded malas, and vermilion speared all over, Singh is mesmerizing for the sheer joy he exudes though depending on one's own level of cynicism, he might seem slightly stoned or slightly unhinged or both. In an interview, it emerged that Singh is an aerospace engineering graduate from IIT Bombay. At the reporter's comment, his usually long nails, Singh smiled disarmingly and said he wanted to tap into the powers of Mahashakti, in other words, the feminine within the masculine. Curiosity abounded on how someone so qualified seemed to have renounced conventional life, domesticity, and a regular career. I attended lectures on postmodernism and Socratic thought alongside my science subjects. Throughout, always have wanted to know what is the meaning of life. That's what brought me here. Said Singh in a benign, gentle tone, entirely unfazed by the loftiness of his purpose. It's always a little startling to be faced with someone thinking more deeply about life. Most of us get through our days focused on routines and responsibilities. What do we do what we are supposed to, reacting instinctively to solving problems, valiantly performing our duties. Actually, thinking about existence falls way down low on the agenda. Partly that's because the dilemmas that arise as a consequence of our own choices are incredibly hard to fix. Far easier than to just get on with it and switch off by watching Netflix. Besides, saints and philosophers have been pondering life's great question for time immemorial, the relation of man to the infinite, without much clarity. It is worth remembering that after writing Anna Karenina and War and Peace, Tolstoy went through a spiritual crisis, convinced he has accomplished nothing. If staggering artistic originality cannot instill life with meaning, does it even exist? And is it worth pursuing? Still, there is absolutely no guarantee that existential contemplation will yield positive results. To the contrary, there's a grave risk that going inwards could create chaos, sinking one further into gloom. No wonder most of us have quietly reached the conclusion that some questions are better left unanswered, which is precisely what makes an anomaly like Abhay Singh so intriguing and endearing. After IIT, he drifted into photography, and in 2014, he put together a project titled The Last Page of Notebook, a haunting visual narrative of lonely struggle of engineering aspirants in Kota. It's a national curse that students are sold on the pipe dream that resolve and determination will lead to that coveted seat, post which everything will be great. As a culture, we revere the slog before the success, but alas, securing 731 rank in JE didn't inure in Singh from feeling profound disillusionment. At least it sent him down a different path of exploration. Post a several lakh hits for Singh, some notoriety at the Kumbh was perhaps inevitable. Juna Akhada's chief patron Mahant Hari Giri claimed he threw Singh out for being a bad Shishya. Singh noted wryly, "Now that I have become famous, he's made himself my guru. Who knows if the truth he seeks will reveal itself where the mighty Ganges, Yamuna, and mythical Saraswati merge. Vitally, the answers lie more in the search, notwithstanding the occasional misstep, to see the world anew. Rahul Priyanka shine at Pickleball Nationals. Dutch star AB is central to Odisha's Warriors' quest for title. Keys unlock her potential in a thriller to win first Grand Slam title. 19th seeded American Madison Keys defeated Aranya Sabalenka 6-3 6 6-3 6-3 Madison Keys Anya Sabalenka Madison Keys Anya Sabalenka 6-3 2-6-7-5 star studded and stoned Slowdown may shape budget focus, IT tweaks, MSME support likely on table. The upcoming budget 25-26 comes in the backdrop of a discernible slowdown in growth, compounded by continuing sluggishness in consumption indicators and middling private investments. North Block and officials engaged in the budget making exercise are learned to be weighing the options of tweaks in income tax rates at a lower interest levels, a proposal that was considered in the July budget but failed to pass muster alongside a bevy of incentives for micro, small, and medium enterprises. The support for the MSME sector is seen as being crucial. Its outside influence in the large scale employment and in India's labor intensive exports, people in the know said. A rationalization of import duties, especially on the intermediate products, in context of Trump led administration, taking charge in Washington is also under discussion, which could go in tandem with Commerce Ministry led initiative to prepare a plan to calibrate a leeway in reducing tariffs on items imported from the US. The person quoted above said, even though it is not a part of the union budget, the government may also reiterate it in its intent to rationalize the goods and services tax structure, but that could only be indicative and likely to remain a broad statement of intent. Easier access to credit, extension of incentives and subsidies to MSMEs have featured in the internal discussions in the government in the run-up to the budget. Here is a concern about the high tax incidence at lower income levels that have come up during the internal discussions for the budget. Estimates have been drawn about the marginal income tax rates, and some relief is being considered for those earning less and senior citizens. A person aware of the discussion said. The room to maneuver on the revenue front is however seen limited to with no significant progress on mobilization and other resources such as asset monetization and disinvestment. Multiple economists, including those who have met with North Block officials in a run-up to the budget, are also of the view that government should stick up to fiscal prudence. A budget with a balanced fiscal path is seen as a big critical being critical to provide space for the monetary policy uh, to ease a bit given the signs of credit growth slowdown. We expect the budget to adopt a balanced approach to boosting growth while retaining fiscal prudence. Balanced approach to growth without retaining fiscal prudence. They should keep India's fiscal risk premia low and provide greater leeway to the RBI to begin lowering its policy rate at February MPC. The rate of increase in capital expenditure by the center will also be critical uh, factor coming after a slowdown in spending in current financial year, primarily affected due to elections held in the first 3 months of the fiscal, along with weather impact from heavy rains. Industry is expecting the government to continue with its capex push, which it believes will help crowd in private investment. The Union government should increase capital expenditures by 25% in FY26 while staying within the fiscal glide path. The focus is expected to continue on the interest-free loans for capex to states, and on the ground impact is more widespread at the state level, even though the conditions for the loans to states might be tweaked further. To meet its fiscal objectives, the government is expected to rely on the dividend from the central bank even as the RBI is tackling the slide in the Indian currency that is seen affecting its balance size. Reliance on RBI's dividends is likely to remain high in FY26 to achieve fiscal consolidation. Central government fiscal consolidation from 9.2% of GDP in FY21 to a likely 4.8% of GDP in FY25 has been driven by improved tax collection, a reduction in unproductive expenditure, and high dividend flows from the RBI. Reliance on RBI dividends have usually been 0.1 to 0.4% of GDP. However, this increased significantly to 0.65% of GDP in FY25. Osamu Suzuki honored with Padam Vibhushan. Ex-SBI chief Arundhati Bhattacharya awarded with Padam Shri. Former chairman of Suzuki Motor Corporation Osamu Suzuki on Saturday posthumously awarded Padam Vibhushan, India's second highest civilian award in the trade and industry category. Former Bihar Deputy Chief Minister Sushil Modi and the chairman of Economic Advisory Council to the Prime Minister Bibek Debroy were posthumously awarded with Padam Vibhushan. State Bank of India's first women chairperson, Arundhati Bhattacharya, was awarded the Padam Shri, one of the country's highest civilian honors, the Ministry of Home Affairs said in a statement. Under Osamu Suzuki's leadership, Maruti Suzuki became one of the first companies to help establish the automobile manufacturing ecosystem in the country. India is now the world's fourth largest automobile manufacturer. A leading advocate of electric mobility, Pawan Goenka, the former managing director of Mahindra and Mahindra, was also awarded Padam Shri. Padma Awards are conferred in various disciplines and fields including art, social work, public affairs, science, engineering, trade and industry, medicine, literature, education, sports and civil service. Padma Vibhushan is awarded for exceptional and distinguished service, and Padma Bhushan is distinguished service of the high order, and Padma Shri for distinguished service in any field. New Unified Pension Scheme notified for government employees. After giving nod to the Unified Pension Scheme in August last year, Finance Minister on Late Night Friday notified the new scheme as an option under the NPS for the employees of the central government. The new optional pension scheme will have a assured payout of 10,000 for employees superannuating after qualifying service of 10 years and full assured payout after a minimum 25 years of qualifying service. The UPS will come into effect on April 1, is expected to benefit over 23 lakh central government employees. The scheme will see a hike in government's contribution to 18.5% of the combined sum of basic pay and dearness allowance from 14% earlier, while a share of employees will be the same at 10%. Under the UPS, there will be assured payout at a rate of 50% of the average basic pay for 12 months immediately prior to superannuation. In case of lesser qualifying service period, there will be proportionate payment. For cases of voluntary retirement, the UPS option will be available after a minimum of 25 years of qualifying service. An assured payout will start from the date on which employee would have superannuated. If he or she had continued in service, the UPS will also be available for employee compulsorily retired under Fundamental Rule 56J, which is not a penalty under Central Civil Services rules. The notification said, however, assured payout will not be available in case of removal or dismissal from service or resignation from employee. In such cases, the Unified Pension Scheme option shall not apply. In case of death of the payout holder, the superannuation, the family payout at a rate of 60% of the admissible payout before his demise will be assured to the legally wedded spouse. There will be two funds under the UPS, one an individual corpus with the employee contribution and matching central government contribution, and two pool corpus with additional central government contribution. The contribution of employees with 10% basic allowance plus dearness with an equivalent matching central government contribution, both will be credited to each employee's individual corpus. Separately, the central government will provide an additional contribution of an estimated 8.5% basic DA of all employees who have chosen UPS to the pool corpus on an aggregate basis. The additional contribution for supporting assured payouts under the UPS. The employees will be able to make investment choices for the individual corpus only, which would then be regulated by the Pension Fund Regulatory and Development Authority PFRDA. There will also be a default pattern of investment defined by PFRDA. Fake RBI Ombudsman scheme sees 32% surge in bank customer complaints. Fake GST notices. Finance Ministry asked taxpayers to verify summons first on the CBIC website. Sri Lanka revokes Adani wind power pricing agreement. AI gains in US China. Should India build an LLM? In the United States, the likes of OpenAI, SoftBank, Oracle, Microsoft, and Nvidia are coming together to build artificial infrastructure for OpenAI in the country. An investment of $500 billion is expected to be made in a new company, Stargate project, to fuel this expansion over the next 4 years. In China, a company has recently shown a new large language model which is being touted to be on par with OpenAI's O1 is in several math, coding, and reasoning benchmarks. The The model launched by Chinese AI lab DeepSeek is open source and is being made available to people at fraction of OpenAI's. These two developments in the span of few days have put spotlight squarely on India and the path it chooses in the AI arms race. Some questions are crucial to be answered. Does India have the economic bandwidth to fuel procurement of AI specific hardware at scale? Should India even focus on building foundational model or just work on use case specific wrappers that are built on top of the other companies models? One of the key questions facing India and the country's businesses and researchers is whether to build a foundational model from scratch or rely on some already readily open source LLMs to build wrappers on top of them. Even within this question there are further doubts. If an LLM is to be made, should it be made India specific, filled with information about Indian specific Indian languages and related knowledge, or it should be a completely foundational model? Infosys co-founder Nandan Nilekani has said that India should not focus on building large language models. Our goal should be not to build one or more LLM, but the big boys in the Silicon Valley do it, spend billions of dollars. We will use it to create synthetic data, build small language models with quickly and train them using appropriate data. However, some in the AI industry believe this could be a flawed approach. Arvind Srinivas, the founder of Perplexity AI, a conversational search engine which is being seen as a potential Google rival, said the Nirekani's commitment on India not needing to build its own AI models is wrong. He's wrong on pushing Indians to ignore model training skills and just focus on building on top of existing models, essential to do both. Srinivas said on a post on X, speaking about the breakthrough made by DeepSeek. Srinivas added in another post, I hope India changes its stance from wanting to reuse models from open source and instead trying to build muscle to train their models that are not just good for Indic languages and are globally competitive on all benchmarks. To be sure, the model released by China's DeepSeek has shown that the training an AI model may not be as expensive an endeavor as previously thought, with cutting edge models possible at a fraction of cost of what it took companies like OpenAI and Meta to build theirs. It is a good start for Indian companies to build wrappers as the first step, but there are fundamental challenges there. In building wrappers, you are dependent on the foundational model of someone else. That model might be open source and easy to access today. What if it isn't tomorrow? That brings up one another fundamental requirement for training LLMs, the hardware. As now Nvidia has virtual monopoly over the graphic process GPUs needed to train sophisticated foundational models. Companies like OpenAI and Meta have procured thousands and thousands of GPUs to build their models. These GPUs are a major cost center of AI operations today, an area where Indian companies are challenged. The government has announced the 13,000 crore India AI mission, under which it plans to subsidize private companies to help them procure 10,000 GPUs and set up the AI data centers. The government has announced a 13,000 crore India AI mission, 13,000 crore AI India AI mission, under which it plans to subsidize private companies to help them procure 10,000 GPUs and set up AI data centers which could be accessed by startups at a nominal cost to build their wrapper models. There could, however, be a challenge to these plans coming from the United States. Day before demitting office, Joe Biden administration released an expansive regulatory framework on the export of AI hardware, which could have far-reaching consequences for India's AI ambitions. In an interim final rule titled Framework for AI Artificial Intelligence Diffusion, the US government has proposed to create three tiers of countries with specific restrictions on the export of AI chips and GPUs for each. India is in the middle tier of this classification and will face some restrictions on the number of GPUs it can import from the United States. These countries will face a limit on how much computing power they can import from American companies unless that computing power is hosted in trusted and secure environments. There are caps on the levels of computing power that can go to each of these countries, roughly around 50,000 advanced AI chips through 2027, although they can be double if the state reaches an agreement with the US. Apart from these three tier classification, the law also envisions a special review of the general validated end user. This list includes only two countries, India and China. India Indian companies that get this authorization can use the exported items for civilian and military purposes, but not for nuclear use. Chinese companies with this authorization can only use for civilian use. The passport defines the relationship between citizens and their government, but it is also a chronicler of how far we have traveled and the evolution of our identities. The crooners. Why do male birds sing is usually to announce their health status, claim territory, and to woo a mate. Be play, love. Intellect has limits, play does not. It lights up our brains, it makes hard times easier and easy more fun. It is about smiling at the cosmos, insignificance, our own existence, and yet having fun while we can. The open door, Kinnar Akhada at the Mahakumbh in Prayagraj, is where the third six find acceptance and a collective spirituality, making a platform for queer rights. Most stories on OTT are dark. I hope that changes. Actor Adil Hussain speaks to Shubhra Gupta on cinema in a pre-digital world, democratization of filmmaking, and why this is the best time for actors. A fisher of the weird and wonderful, David Lynch showcased the kind of superreality, truest possible imitation of life. Why your waist size matters to define obesity, waist to hip ratio. Once in a lifetime wonders journey from the Mahakumbh. So that's all. See you in the next one.